that's,
he's
that's
out of
a good,
town.
that's a
And,
good
I
reason.
don't think Meadow is coming over here. to
no,
help.
Sam's
I saw
online.
Mason, I saw Mason snowmobiling
Did he send the text to
other
me?
day. It was
No,
about a
Katie's
week or
texted
so
us.
ago.
Yeah.
I think he's coming over tomorrow.
You saw my text.
It was on a Friday.
All right.
Or
Yeah.
Thursday,
No,
no, it was a
right.
Thursday. It was a Thursday, and you'd gone by in a big truck, and then I was up there, and all of a sudden I ran into
No.
him. Gosh, he's grown up. I didn't hardly recognize him.
Yeah, he's almost as tall as I am.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
But yeah, Liz is
Okay.
racing here this weekend. That's what Mason's coming over
Uh-huh.
with her tomorrow.
Oh, so they're racing here this weekend.
Yeah, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Oh, that's exciting. Um,
No, you need to put it on.
Are we ready? Calling to order the Planning Commission. It's a regular meeting. Today is Wednesday, March 23rd. It's 6:37 PM. Could we have a roll call, please?
Bob Ganusi.
Katie Souls. Gene Walter.
And
That
Sam's
looks like
here
he's-
waving his hands.
He's muted.
Thank you. Yes.
Oh, there you are.
Sam Brewer, yes.
Thanks. Sorry.
I just wanted to interject here before we go on to the consent agenda with the minutes. There was an edit in the minutes. At the last meeting, it was referred to discussion and possible action, and it should have been referred to as a public hearing and possible action. So we have made that change to the minutes.
Okay. So do I have a motion to approve?
Parnell is going to zoom in. I move to approve the agenda.
Do I have a
Second.
second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Should we just keep moving?
Approve the, yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Now, do I have a motion to? We're ready to open the public hearing.
Number 3.
Oh. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? No, that's what we just did, right? Where's the approved-
minutes.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda from January 26, 2022?
February.
That's just, oh, I'm looking at the wrong one.
Give me that.
February 23rd.
February 23rd, 2022.
I so moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Now we can open the public hearing.
Is there something to read? to open this or not?
No.
Mm-mm.
I move to open the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Okay, thank you, Chairperson. I do have proof of publication that I want to enter as an exhibit that the legal was in the paper 14 days in advance of tonight's meeting. And I did receive the adjacent mailers to the neighbors within 200 feet of the subject property from the applicant. And those were sent out certified mail, return receipt. So we do have those entered into record as well. So tonight we have in front of the Planning Commission a preliminary plat and final plan for Elk Creek Condos, planning area 4W.1, and also a portion of Meyer subdivision lot 2. And can you unmute, Sam?
And also Layla Rosales is on there.
Thank you.
Well, this is.
Oh, I thought you, but you're on, you're on the call.
she's on the
Okay.
phone. Okay, so again, just for the record, a portion of this subdivision is within the Grand Park PDD. And we did include the Grand Park PDD in the packet. And a portion of this property is actually within the business zone. And that lot is known as Meyer Lot 2. And I don't know, for those of you that will remember in '05, a portion of that property was replatted back in 2005. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit more detail in a minute. So the planning area is 4W.1, and the PDD allows for an average density of 9.3 units per acre, 100 attached units, and 105,800 square feet of commercial on 11.2 acres. So this development application would create 46 units on 4.05 acres, which equates to an average density of 11.3 acres. And I did have some language in the briefing that refers back to the annexation agreement, which discusses the density transfers that we've dealt with in the past. In the event the boundaries of a planning area are adjusted at a time of subdivision or final plan, then the approved number of residential units or the approved commercial square footage provided in the PDD shall be the controlling factor, and the designated acreage or density will be adjusted from that constant. So the narrative suggests that the 46 condos will be located primarily on the Grand Park planning area 4W.1, and that the Myers Lot 2 has only been included in this development in order to dedicate a 60-foot Johns Drive right-of-way. And I did notice that the width of the proposed right-of-way is not listed on the plat, but the width of the existing portion of Johns Drive is shown there, and that's shown as a 36-foot right-of-way. And again, the Myers property is subject to a subdivision improvement agreement that was recorded in conjunction with this plat that I just mentioned back in 2005. So I did include both the plat and the SIA for the Meyer property in the packet. And again, the Meyer subdivision was a re-subdivision of previously platted property and was generally intended to extinguish prior restrictions and undertaking related to the Forest Meadows property and actually defer improvements until such time as the property is developed. Among other things, the SIA provides that the town may require additional street rights of way and access and utility easements in conjunction with a future subdivision or development. And staff believes that Fraser should require additional right of way for the existing Johns Drive in conjunction with this development application to match the proposed 60-foot right of way that Clark is shown on Meyer Lot 2. 4W has 16 units remaining, not 46. 46 is if you add the 30% density transfer on there. So the applicant is asking for a density transfer here. He's asking for 27 residential units to be transferred from 3WA, which is Cousins Point. So that would leave 0 units left in 3WA. Between what's already platted in the Cousins Point plat and what's left, there would be nothing left because there's only 27 left. 3 residential units are being requested to be transferred from 5W, which is Elk Creek filings 1 through 4. And if you remember, they had asked for a density transfer for this planning area for the Alpenglow subdivision. So that would leave 18 units left in 5W. So we're requesting that this that the language on the general note says 16 units remaining, not 46. And this additional remaining unit language needs to be added to the final plan, the final plat regarding the density transfers. So the development standards for this specific planning area allow for a 45-foot height max, a 10-foot front yard setback, 6-foot side yard setback, 10-foot rear yard setback, and a 10% open space requirement. And this also has a 20-foot improvement and 20-foot building setback from Old Victory Road, similar to the Alpenglow subdivision planning area. So On final note number 2, we're suggesting delete 130 permitted, including the density transfer. Because again, density transfers are allowed, but only if sufficient roadway capacity and sewer and water is available. And that will be determined in the future. The site data charts on sheet 3 and 4 of 11 of the final plan, they need to be corrected. It is suggested that there are 3 one-bedroom units per building times 4 buildings would equal 12 one-bedroom units, but the chart says 10. So we need the site data charts to be revised to equal a total of 46 units per the requested density, and add that site data chart to the final plats. There's some information in the briefing about the parking requirements. It appears that the applicant has met the parking requirements. We're looking for clarity to clarify the reference. There's some reference on sheet 3 and 4 of the final plan as it relates to the conservation easement. There's legend that there's nothing that corresponds on the plan, so we're looking for clarification on that. There's also reference to a development permit in the title that needs to be deleted because the code now requires site plan approval, and we don't have anything in the code relating to development permits. We did send this out for agency review comments. Several comments were included in the packet from different entities. There were also several different engineering review comments from Merrick on drainage and utilities. There was also a Whitmer law firm memo dated 3/15, and I apologize. Initially, a former version of that went in the packet, but that was resubmitted into the packet and also provided to you separately this afternoon to the applicant.
Were there
So,
any changes to that?
no,
Okay.
there were changes to 2 of the comments, so I apologize for that. And I'll probably pause here. We're recommending approval with conditions. There are 12 conditions, and I can go ahead and read through them after Layla does her presentation.
Before Layla starts, is Parnell on the meeting now?
Looks like it.
Yes, I'm on the meeting. Sorry, I got the time zones messed up.
Can you state your name for,
Parnell Quinn.
um,
Are you ready? Okay. Ready if you are.
don't forget to state your name, even though I already said it.
Just one second. Can I share? Okay.
I like it when things work.
Yeah.
Layla Rosales, Terracina Design, Denver, Colorado. I am here representing Grand Park. I am the planner on this particular subdivision. I know I've seen all of you before, so thanks tonight for coming out and meeting with us on this. It's a beautiful night out there. There's no snow. I'm kind of excited. So what we're presenting to you tonight.
Can Sam see this?
Yeah,
Yeah,
everyone can see it. Yeah, I've got it up
Good.
on
Thank
Zoom.
you.
Yeah, that's why it took me a second.
Excuse me.
No, good. So what we're talking about tonight is phase 2 of the Elk Creek condos. And I'm going to show you some kind of pretty pictures and talk about what we're proposing to build here. So the site we're talking about here is shown in red on the left side of your screen. And the site we're looking at, as Catherine already mentioned, is a combination of 4W.1, which is in Grand Park PDD, and Meyer Lot 2, which is a basically zoned business within the town. So what we're talking about today is really the extent, like I said, the expansion of the Elk Creek condos, which is here. We're looking at 46 units here in 4 buildings. We do have about 50% 2 bedrooms, 20% 1 bedrooms, and 30% 3 bedrooms. So kind of what we're thinking about currently. Each unit does have a detached garage shown. And as Catherine already alluded to, we are meeting all of the parking requirements. Access off for this particular phase of these Elk Creek condos will be coming off of John's Drive here. So we will extend from Old Victory Road. And we've got, as you can kind of see, 2 points of access here. We've met kind of all of the fire requirements for the fire trucks to be able to access and get into and out of this particular neighborhood. The line, just so to make it clear for everybody, the line for Meyer Lot 2 versus Grand Park is this kind of thick dashed line that runs horizontally across this page. So everything on the bottom of that horizontal line is part of the Grand Park PDD, or 4W.1, as we refer to it. Everything on the top part of that line is Meyer Lot 2. And so as you can kind of see, by doing that, really the only part of Meyer Lot 2 that we're proposing today is the extension of John's Drive, which is, I know, something that the town is interested in. All of the actual development of the condominiums that will be built here are part of Grand Park. They're not part of Meyer Lot 2. So we do have lots that we are proposing as part of that preliminary plat in Meyer Lot 2. So we will subdivide it into these kind of large bubbles, as you can kind of see here. But those would be for future development, be something that we would come back in when we figure out what we're going to build there, and with a potentially an additional final plat for that. But certainly, if not that, certainly a site plan for future review. So really what we're talking about today as far as development goes is within 4W.1, which is down here on the bottom of this page, and then John's Drive. What you're seeing here in this hatch pattern that didn't show up quite as well on the application, which was, I apologize for, is the conservation easement that Catherine had alluded to. So the lot, and I guess I could maybe zoom in on that. Oh, look at that. Fingers are great. Oh, maybe. You can kind of see as I zoom in a little bit that the lot does stay outside of that conservation easement. So as far as anything that's being developed as part of this particular subdivision, and the conservation easement would remain unplatted as part of this. So this site plan does meet all of the development standards within the code, as well as all of the development standards in the PDD as it relates to setbacks, snow storage, building heights, all of those components, parking, have all been met and are in good shape for this particular subdivision. Zoom out here for a second. So me, okay. So we did some renderings on this as well, just because that's what I like to do. So this would be a view from the Elk Creek neighborhood. Those, and the condo buildings are being built now, so we are planning to use the exact same floor plan and models that are currently as part of Elk Creek that are currently under construction. This is a view from John's Drive into the subdivision. So this is coming from basically from looking from Murdoch's. Oh, maybe. Oh, there it goes. Okay. And here is kind of just kind of a little bit of an aerial perspective showing how this will look with, there again is the looped road, the building in the middle. This is the existing approved subdivision here for Elk Creek condos. So it gives you kind of an idea of how this fits in, a view from Elk Creek looking towards Highway 40. So one thing that we are asking for as part of the construction of John's Drive here is the town had requested a 60-foot right-of-way, which we're willing to give at this point, but we would like to include some on-street parking on John's Drive. I think that that helps the town as well as helps us for future development. So what we're proposing here, and we're happy to work with staff on kind of the nuances of what that flow line to flow line looks like. But for us, what seemed to make some sense would be a 4-foot flow line to flow line. So that gives you two 12-foot drive lanes, as well as two 10-foot parking lanes, again, parallel parking on either side of this roadway, as well as 5-foot sidewalks. So that is kind of the road section that we are contemplating as part of this. And as we move into construction plans with this next phase into final plat, we certainly would like to kind of get that tightened up so that we can only, design it once. That'd be cool. So that's what we're talking about here today. We would like for that parking to be able to be utilized as part of the Meyer Lot 2 subdivision at some point in the future. So to kind of count towards some of that parking, we do not need that parking for the proposal that's in front of you today. The proposal in front of you today is fully self-parked and contained within its confines of that subdivision and that plat. So going into the conditions that Catherine had, I think overall, we don't really have many issues. And when I say issues, thoughts. I think there are two items that we kind of like to have conversations about, not necessarily that we disagree with, but something that we just want to understand a little bit better. The first of them would be related to condition number 4, which Catherine already brought up about the additional right of way for John's Drive. So I think one of the things that we want to make sure that we're all kind of clear on is that the condition in the PDD to provide access from Old Victory Road to County Road 72, which is what this picture shows, is taken care of in the actual PDD itself as part of the Elk Creek subdivision. And I kind of highlighted that road connection in red on this map. So I think that has been satisfied. The John's Drive actually isn't part of the PDD technically. It's on Meyer Lot 2. So it's kind of that weird in between. So it's kind of an additional connection potentially. So I think that piece is covered. And I just wanted to make it clear that we have met that obligation in the PDD to provide that connection from Old Victory Road to County Road 72. We would like to understand a little bit better about what the town is looking for in that expanded right of way, the dedication. Just we want to have a conversation about what you guys are proposing for that additional right of way there. And then the only other comment that I think Clark will probably spend a little bit more time talking about would be a couple of the comments in Whitmer's letter that he'd like to better understand as well, that we want to, and Kent's nodding his head. So I think he knows the conversation that we're going to have. So those are only two. All the rest of the conditions, absolutely great. We're fine with them. We don't have any problems with that. We just want to, and again, I don't know that we have problems with any of the rest of these. We just want to better understand what staff is looking for and work with staff on making sure that we can come to an agreement on what some of these conditions, the road specifically, would look like and how it gets funded and what we're doing with it and all of those kind of components around that. So with that, I'm happy to leave this picture up if it helps, or take it down, but that is all I have as far as a presentation goes tonight. And we can certainly talk about conditions of approval moving forward once we hear back from.
So I have a little question.
Sure.
So do the, on that conservation easement, does it
Yes.
extend into the wetland in the Willow area on the Myers lot? Or is it just not shown?
It
on this?
actually, so the way the conservation easement is written, it's only for the PDD. So the conservation easement stops at the Grand Park PDD and does
Gotcha.
not extend into Meyer Lot 2.
Okay,
So that's how come you kind of see it stopping at that
okay,
line.
gotcha, okay.
Because, yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Can you clarify something for me? Can you flip back? Can you flip back to yes, that one.
Okay.
So I'm confused because down in this corner right now, there's the 3 houses which Clark is using for employees.
Oh, this area down. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. So that is actually because, again, go back to that line that I was describing to you here. Right? So those 3 houses are part of Elk Creek, which were approved as part of the PDD. There. Is that your question? It's kind of about those homes
Well,
right there?
it just conflicts with the other rendering. If you go back to the other picture.
So no, those three houses are right here.
Okay.
Is that, the
Yeah.
orientation, I guess, is a
Now
little
I
bit
can
different. It's
s-
probably
now I
throwing you
can-
off a little bit.
Now I can visualize. it.
Okay. Yeah, those are right there. Does that help?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions for me?
Yes, I have a question.
Sure.
Could you go back to the John's Drive slide where you show the
section?
44 Yeah, the
Mhm.
section.
Sure.
So you're proposing to give a 60-foot right of way
Yes,
for John's Drive,
correct.
sort of end to end through 4W and through the Myers parcel.
Correct.
And you're going to have two 12-foot lanes.
Correct.
And you're going to have 10-foot parking on each side. So is this going to be a town of Fraser Road?
Mhm.
Okay, so it will be a town of Fraser Road. Well, I'm a little confused because you had said something about wanting to have the 10-foot parking on either side of the street available for use in future developments.
Mhm.
But if it's a town road and it's parking for anybody, how can it be? I mean, it's first come, first serve, isn't it?
It's true. It's
Okay,
true.
so I
And-
was a little confused how you could count on a certain number of parking spots on the street for a future development.
That's a fair question. It would be an instance where, we've got a certain amount of parking required, off-street parking, and being able to count some of the on-street parking towards that. So maybe, let's say we're required to have 2 spaces per unit, and we put 1.5 of them off-street and half of one on-street. So what that would do then is, and I'm just spitfiring here with you a little bit, so that maybe half of the on-street parking wouldn't be allocated, but the truth of the matter is, looking at the location of where this is, the only folks that are really going to park there are the people who live there, or
The brewery.
The
Vicious
brewery will- the
cycle,
brew-
they will park there.
they
Yeah,
will park
I
there to
was
some
gonna
degree. That's
say,
true. That's true.
It'll be well appreciated, the street
Yeah.
parking, because
Yeah.
Vicious Cycle Breweries gathered quite a crowd of cars up and down.
That's true.
Both the Johns
true.
Road
But if we're
and
gonna,
on up,
and I guess where we're going
Old
with this
Victory.
is this road section, is bigger than what the town requires.
right.
And so if we're going to go in and construct something above and beyond, we'd like to get a little bit of something in return for that. And so, if we provide this parking, if half of it is, it's not allocated, that's not the right word, but can be used by Vicious Cycle, that's great for them, right? That's a win-win, because otherwise there's no parking on this street at all per your current road section.
Right.
So I think we can come up with something that could be a win for those guys as well as potentially a use for us, if that's a
By
fair
the
way
way,
to
I
put that.
like the idea and I'm all for it. I just
Trying
wasn't
to, the
sure
logistics,
how
yeah.
you could request parking that would be public parking on a public
Mhm.
street as a count towards future parking in a future development. But I see where you're going with it. It's a kind of a trade-off.
It is. It's,
Okay.
it's a little bit of a trade-off, and that's kind of what we're kind of, we think this is a win and this is a good thing for both us and for the town.
Okay,
so-
I'm good.
Does that make sense to you? Awesome.
Layla, I've got a question. Can you go back to where you had the conservation easement shown crosshatched?
Maybe. That one.
Where did that perimeter description
Oh,
come?
Can you put your microphone?
Oh, sure. Push?
Yeah.
So there was actually a legal description written around this crazy boundary from our survey team as part of that conservation easement that was recorded against this property. So this is based on that legal description, and there's a meets and bounds for it. And so we got all of that line work from the surveyor, and that's what's shown in this. map.
Okay, so
Does that-
it's from that easement that was done a couple years ago.
That's correct.
And then,
That's the only one
and
that
then-
we have on record right now is that one that was recorded.
okay, it's that legal description from the
Correct.
easement that was voided.
That's
Okay.
correct.
Anyone else have questions?
Yeah, I guess I'll make a quick comment about the parking on John's Drive. So There was some reference to this in the narrative, and there was also a schematic shown on one of the pages of the final plan. There was no plan and profile on the construction documents at all. So that was what the merit comment said, that there was minimal information provided about that. So there hasn't been any detailed review on this at this point in time. So,
Right.
I mean, I would suggest that we probably sit down at a staff level as you're moving forward with working on the CDs to have that discussion.
I mean, that's why we do preliminary plans for you guys to review at this level, is so that we can, before we kind of dive into the full construction documents, let's make sure we understand before we provide all of those details around the engineering. So that's why we kind of brought this in front of you tonight, just to get some feedback on what we think that that road section can be and how that could work, so we can, so when we resubmit for final plat, we will have full construction plans included.
And then I guess as it relates to this 60-foot right of way going into what's now a 36 right of way,
Mhm.
that's why we're asking for additional right of way. Because it would be a 60-foot going into that. So I guess we can have that discussion at the same time.
Yes, we should talk about how that could all work together and what that means.
Meaning the right of way.
The existing right of way behind the
Behind
Murdoch Center.
Yeah, that's right. yeah.
Right.
You know, and with my thoughts about that too are, of course, you see me back there, I hang out. I was back. Yeah, I know. I was listening to my wonderful pod thing. Anyway, it's narrow and there's that stretch gets a lot of construction traffic. It has your construction traffic. And once, it'll be great to have these condos there because that your construction pit area won't be there at all. But I imagine that it's going to move out off of the Fraser Valley Parkway. So, and it's a main, it's going to be part of that main arterial, or artery, I should say, arterial, meandering arterial move from Winter Park eventually to County Road 5. So, and I think it's important to focus on that versus you do have that existing connector road, but it's through a narrow streets through a residential neighborhood. Right. You know, and putting all that traffic from Old Victory Road through there just doesn't seem appropriate. And especially since there'll be with this a lot of construction traffic for a couple of 2-3 years. So that's
We're not
my take
arguing that
on it.
we won't do this alignment. I mean, obviously, we presented it, we shared it with you.
Yeah.
It's really talking about the existing right of way, which we don't own, right? We have no control over how that gets dealt with and built. And I'm feeling like, again, we can have a conversation about how we can cost share on getting some improvements done to your existing, right? I think there's some options out there
Mhm.
for us to better understand how to make that. We don't disagree with you that making that a better roadway all the way from Old Victory Road to County Road 72 would be fantastic. It's just, how are we going to do that? Because that's not our road. It's not our obligation to do anything with that existing roadway.
Yeah.
So let's talk about it.
Thank you.
Yeah, and again, that section goes back to the roadway master plan, sheet 11 of 11 of the PDD.
Mhm.
That says provision will be made for permanent public roadway and trail access between County Road 72 and Old Victory Road. And there are arrows on this roadway plan that go basically from Bank of the West pointing this way to the county road pointing that way. And I believe, I don't have it in front of me right now, but I know that this was discussed during Elk Creek filings 1 through 4. And
was.
would that road that Layla just showed in red replace what's on this master roadway plan? And I'm pretty sure that the condition that was approved at town board said, you can go ahead and put this on there and we'll have this discussion that yes, in fact, this is a roadway that goes from Old Victory Road to the county road, but it doesn't fulfill this requirement. And I will pull up that resolution tomorrow and
That's fine. But again, you know, where it gets complicated or confusing is that, again, going back to that horizontal line about where the Grand Park PDD ends and where a different part, just because we happen to have bought Meyer Lot 2 subsequent to all of this, is honestly just kind of luck on your guys' part, to be candid, because somebody else could have come in and bought Meyer Lot 2, and then there'd be no obligation at all. So we're not arguing that we're going to build the road. We want to put the road in. Let's just figure out what it looks like, how it gets funded, how we do it. Fair?
Yeah.
So you said you had some questions?
I have some, yeah.
Okay.
And I do think that Elk Ranch Road does, is Clark Lipscomb for the record, please. I do think Elk Ranch Road does satisfy that. And to Layla's point, if we didn't own the Meyer lot, which we didn't own when we did the 05 PDD, there's no connection that's really possible other than where Elk Ranch Road went. What are you gonna do? Run it across up the wetlands of Elk Creek? I mean, that's where it has to go. You got to kind of forget the fact that we bought Meyer Lot 2 subsequent to that. And I think it's fortunate that we did buy it. And I think it's fortunate that we're thinking about how can we make some additional connections. We can develop 4W.1 without any subdivision of Meyer Lot 2. We can do it without even touching Meyer Lot 2. There's not a lot to be gained by us by putting in roads that don't have subdivisions around them. They're costly, they're expensive, but we're trying to do it because we think it's good for the town. If you don't want us to do it, we can take it off and we can go back to a different way of doing this and just developing 4W.1 and leaving Meyer Lot 2 completely independent, which is, how it was intended to be before we bought it all. Okay, but they are two unrelated projects, and we're trying to meld the two in a way that we think is best for our community, and that we would hope that you guys would be acceptable of. We also, regarding the on-street parking, Bob, the point of that is it would be first come, first serve. It definitely, you can't, that's no different than Eisenhower Road is out here. But residents that live along Eisenhower park on Eisenhower too, when there's spots available. It's like that in lots of cities. It's expensive to build a 44-foot wide road. And I think, again, I don't think it's our job to solve the parking problem of the new brewery. And I'm glad they're having such great success, and they know they've got a parking problem, and the town knows they have a parking problem, and there's no parking on Old Victory Road, and that's being dealt with. And I know they're working with other parties. But this could effectively help everyone. And who knows, maybe they'll help pitch in to pave that much wider road section than what's required by the town. I'll talk to Nathan about it. But we think that's a good plan and a good idea. Regarding comments, I just want to clean this up. I mean, there's a note 6 that says add Old Victory Road setbacks to final plan and final plat. And Old Victory Road doesn't abut 4W.1. And I think that note 6 needs to be deleted off your conditions, because I just don't want to have the confusion. And then I would like to talk about, there's a note on here to address the Whitmer Law Firm memo. So let me see if I can't get back to that memo. Do you have a copy of it? Oh, you're the best. Thank you. And I think it's important that we address some of these things here tonight and work through these items, particularly since we have Mr. Whitmer here. Let's start off with item number 1. First of all, the title commitments. Title commitment hadn't changed. The process has and always will be. We submit title commitments when we submit these applications. They take a long time to process. And prior to going to final plat, we provide an updated commitment. You guys compare the two. We'll outline anything that would have changed or otherwise be different. But you guys do that review too. Those title commitments are typically effective for 30 days. And that's the process that we've always undertaken. So a new title commitment will be provided at the time that we're doing final plat. Okay. I'm not clear, and perhaps Mr. Whitmer can clarify. There's something about litigation in point 1, second paragraph. Mr. Whitmer, can you explain what Liz Pendens that you're speaking about?
When the conservation easement dispute arose last summer, and the Elk Creek recorded conservation easement was voided, the town engaged Tim Shank, the surveyor, to come up with what the town was comfortable with as far as a proposed conservation easement for Elk Creek Meadow and Cousins Meadow. He did a detailed look at it in conjunction with Melinda Beck and her interpretation of what should be in that easement as far as the perimeter of the land. And so Tim took that information and created a legal description. That legal description, when the litigation with Grand Park and Cornerstone began, because the conservation easement is partly the subject of that litigation, it's proper to record in the real estate records a notice that there is litigation affecting a specific piece of property. So it's the town's interpretation that the Tim Shank legal description is what is at issue in that case, whether or not it should be in a conservation easement. And if you overlay the Tim Shank conservation easement legal description, it encroaches into this submittal slightly. I can pass this along and we can show it to the applicant. But that is my drawing, but it's pretty clear that it goes not through the buildings, but through a portion of the southwest edge of the property. So all we were suggesting in our note 1 in our memo was that because that sliver is subject to litigation, it may or may not end up being part of the ultimate conservation easement. But if you go ahead and approve this plat right now, it takes it off the table for discussion. And it has previously been suggested by the town that they want that sliver in conservation easement. And so that's what we're litigating about. So my comment was the plan needs to be revised to pull that sliver out, or the litigation needs to be resolved.
What are you saying?
To your pink line, what is?
Pink line, is that what we're looking at?
Yeah.
Well, it actually goes through one of the buildings, doesn't it?
Is it possible that me and Sam could see that, please?
No, it looks like it's just
Yeah,
on
I'm
the
Oh,
corner. of the-
Okay,
Lots of. little
No.
parking
No.
there.
I see,
It
it's
wasn't
parking.
Well, Mr. Whitmer, first of all, I'd never seen that. I've never seen that legal description. Secondly, the legal description that's recorded for the conservation easement that we recorded over the Elk Creek corridor, which is what's shown on our plans. That legal description was a requirement of the town of Fraser, and specifically Rod McCowan, the former town lawyer, associated with the conservation easement for Elk Creek that Mr. McGowan helped write and draft, that was recorded, that the town rescinded, that we held an injunction hearing on, that you were very well aware of. And the town lost in the injunction hearing, and the town was ordered to process all plans status quo. So Mr. Whitmer, what you're doing by using a legal description that some other surveyor prepared without any coordination or discussion with the developer, and then sticking a condition in that says that this development can't be approved until that's resolved, is you're violating the court order.
I would direct Mr. Lipscomb to the transcript from the preliminary injunction hearing and the ruling that Judge Hope gave, where she expressly stated, I'm not worried about what's going to happen in Elk Creek Meadow or Cousins Meadow, because you're the town and you're going to not approve something if you think it's encroaching into those two meadows. So
So this
Mr.
is great.
Lipscomb, with all due respect,
Yeah.
you're wrong.
Mr. Whitmer, with all due respect, you're trying to undo something that your predecessor already did, required. By the way, the reason it took so long to get the Elk Creek conservation easement done, we've done lots of conservation easements. We've never done a meets and bounds legal description that would follow a boundary such as that, as Rod McGowan required. And there's plenty on file with the town of Fraser pertaining to McGowan's and the town board's requirement to do that meets and bounds legal description. And that easement was recorded using the document that Mr. McGowan the Fraser town attorney helped draft. Okay, and that was properly recorded. The town rescinded that. That's a subject of litigation that will continue. But you can't stop this development because you have a survey that wants something different. Moreover, the 2005 PDD specifically shows the conservation easement area over the Elk Creek corridor. Our legal description for the conservation easement that we recorded over Elk Creek is larger in size and outside of the boundary on the 2005 PDD. So Mr. Whitmer, you're not only violating, in our opinion, the court order, you're ignoring prior town directives and ignoring the PDD and the map that's the subject of this development. And this development cannot be held up because Mr. Whitmer has an opinion on a legal matter that's probably going to be in litigation for years and years.
So first of all, Mr. McGowan did not have a part in that conservation easement. As you all know, it came out at the preliminary injunction hearing that he was not a part of it. He did not approve it.
Final approval. He might have been.
Okay,
a
did
part of it
he did help
initially, but he
draft
did
it.
Not give it final approval.
He
did not
did
give it final
help.
There
approval.
was no signature.
He
So-
did help draft the conservation easement legal document that's recorded. He required the legal description that was provided by Mike Curvin after a long, it took a long time. That is an extensive conservation easement legal description. And that legal description is greater in size and in a larger boundary than that's shown on the recorded 05 PDD. So Mr. Whitmer, perhaps you can explain to me how Tim Shank possibly could come up with a boundary that has a perfectly straight line when the recorded 2005 PDD that governs this project has the conservation easement over Elk Creek that's required clearly shown on the PDD. And Mr. Shank's survey in no way, shape or form follows that boundary. Mike Curvin's follows it, but is larger, which Rod McGowan signed off on that legal description. Whether he signed off on the final legal document, nobody really knows, but we do know that he helped draft it. And
But
we
we
have
know
those
there's
emails.
No
So-
signature on the document.
Excuse me?
Gene must not
He
have
doesn't
done it.
sign.
So,
Excuse me,
yeah,
Gene,
we
your
need
town
to-
lawyer doesn't
let's-
sign
let's
documents.
stop. We're not attorneys. We're the planning commission. It's our job to make a recommendation to the board on how to proceed.
Okay.
So
Well, we
I
would,
don't want to be.
we're
and-
requesting that condition pertaining to this not being approved because his surveyor drew a straight line when there's no straight line drawn on any of the 05 PDD or the 03 PDD or any other document governing this project. Just because Kent and Tim Shank decided, oh, let's put a straight line here and our plat lays over it, we want that condition removed. That is not an appropriate condition. That's in violation of our zoning documents with the town, and it's in violation of all our agreements with the town. And we can have that, we can have more litigation over that, and the damages can mount while this project's held up, if we want to go down that road, Mr. Whitmer.
I know that a lot of these things you'll be discussing at a staff level. Because it's going to be a little bit of time before it comes before the board. That parameters that you had staked out prior to for that area under conservation easement here in Elk Creek. Maybe there's an opportunity that we can incorporate that into the negotiations that are ongoing with the lawsuit to establish that portion of the entirety.
But
That's
that's
just, we
not-
can't decide
again,
that here.
Yeah, it's not for
But-
us to decide.
Right, it's not for us to decide, but I think that could be a way out of it.
Well, I
Yeah,
think it's enough for this planning commission to recognize that Mr. Whitmer's line
No.
in no way,
no, wait,
shape or
Clark,
form, hang on, in
you're
no
not
way,
gonna
shape, let me
accuse
finish, Gene, and
him
I'll let
of
you finish.
lying.
There's, his line in no way, shape or form follows the recorded PDD 03 or 05 for this project.
Just to be clear, it's not Mr. Whitmer's line. It's the line that Tim Shank came up with in collaboration with the Board of Trustees, and they approved.
Thank you.
So let's,
This is Parnell, I didn't ever see a survey of that property that was done by the surveyor. So I'm not exactly sure what survey you're talking about that the town board approved, unless that was done before I was on the board. Also, I've asked Rod McGowan, I don't know, 15 times to see the draft of the document that he had presented to Jeff. And I've never seen the difference between what was signed and what his preliminary draft looked like. So if you can get me a copy of that, Kent, that'd be great.
And I'm sorry, Parnell, are you asking about the Tim Shank survey that you've never seen?
Yep, correct.
Yeah, Parnell, I'll ask.
Okay, because he wasn't able to provide it to us for a year and a half of what the difference was between what was filed and what his recommendations were, or what he didn't agree to when he had drafted the document to begin with.
Yeah, I'll ask the question, Parnell.
I just have a comment about it again. We're the planning commission. I am not comfortable removing the condition at this point. It's not our job. We have no knowledge of what's going on with the executive sessions about this easement. And so unfortunately, it's not for us to make that decision. It's the board's job to make that decision.
I think we would like to request from Mr. Whitmer the AutoCAD file of this survey so that we can do an overlay of it over our documents so that it's clear to show the difference between the PDD documents, conservation easement that is specified, our boundary that's bigger than that, and Mr. Shank's and Mr. Whitmer's proposal. Is that something you can do, Mr. Whitmer?
Yeah, I think we can do that.
Okay. Yes, Bob.
I just had a question. On one of the slides that you showed in your presentation, you had the hatched area which represented the easement. Could you throw that back up real quick? I just want to see what the shape of that looked like as compared to this document I'm looking at here. And I asked that not because I want to try to dispute anything here. I just was out of curiosity, wanted to see how close the two lines might match, because it's going to be something that will have to be worked out.
Again, it's not to be worked out with us, the planning commission.
Correct.
It's to be worked
I
out with
just-
the board.
Yeah. Okay.
This is the version that was recorded
And is that recorded, or that has the legal description that Clark is talking about that was agreed upon before it was recorded, but then later it was unrecorded? Right. Okay.
Well, no, it's still recorded, Bob. That's still recorded. The town passed a resolution nullifying it. We believe the conservation easement still intact and in place. That's in litigation, but
Yeah.
what's never been in litigation or at issue is the boundary utilized for the Elk Creek riparian corridor. And we've got overlays of that legal description over what's on the recorded PDD of where they wanted it. And our boundary's in fact larger than the PDD boundary.
Yeah. Okay.
And Rod was the one that was adamant. Every conservation easement we've ever done have had hand-drawn easement areas because they're quite large and they're typically complex boundaries. And Rod was adamant that a legal description be produced. And that was the one holdup, which took 18 months to get this legal description out of our surveyors. And then when we finally got that, this got finished. So bottom line is, we're not, first of all, we could subdivide that if we wanted to. There's nothing that says we can't subdivide those areas. we're not trying to do that. We're not proposing to do that. We're following the boundary of the easement we recorded. And that legal description makes up the boundary of these lots, okay, which is outside of all the wetland areas, the riparian corridors, et cetera, that we preserved. Okay. So, but if you give me that AutoCAD file, that'd be great. And we'll do an overlay. And this is the first time I've ever seen this map that Mr. Whitmer presented. I think the other things are things that we do in the ordinary course of business for the most part with Catherine.
Okay.
Getting the final plat, that is in Mr. Whitmer stuff. I do disagree with note 14 in his memo on the roadway master plan. Layla touched on that. I've touched on it. Elk Ranch Road is that road. I think you'll find that in our Elk Creek subdivision filings, Catherine, and you know, picture this without Meyer Lot 2. It's pretty much where it has to go because you have to avoid the wetlands of Elk Creek. Those two arrows literally came into the Elk Creek riparian corridor that she's referring to in the master plan, master roadway plan. You're not going to build a road over the wetlands of Elk Creek, right? So again, arrows are generic. Where we can physically build roads get defined through processes such as this. And that's what we
I'll
did.
track that Elk Creek Town Board resolution.
That'd be
and
great.
send
And
it off tomorrow.
remember, we had a trail originally, and then we replaced it with a sidewalk, the length of Elk Ranch Road, that the town code provides for a trail or sidewalks. And we did that in the Elk Creek filing. Well, 1, 2, 3, and 4 all have the sidewalks for the length of Elk Ranch Road. Okay. The trail, we would love to do the trail there. It's just kind of complicated because of the wetlands and the meandering nature of Elk Creek. Okay.
So I'm agreeable to deleting condition number 16 because no portion of this 4W.1 touches Old Victory Road.
Condition 6, Catherine.
It's
6,
What did I say?
16.
Oh,
You're
sorry.
still sick.
I am sick.
Yes, condition 6.
that's 6, yes. Mhm.
And then, so Mr. Whitmer's on 14, we can talk about that more, and you're going to do the search on Elk Creek. I kind of think it's a moot point with what we proposed here in the Meyer Lot 2. And I guess the one thing that we would like to understand, and I'll move on, is kind of that area behind the Murdoch Center where you said it was a 36-foot right of way today, I think.
Mhm.
And obviously the Murdoch Center in the back of it could use lots of cleanup. You know, you've seen PowerPoints from me on dumpster enclosures and
Mhm.
all these great things. And we pick up trash relentlessly from that center that blows across our properties. And we are more than willing to help with a larger right of way there. It's important. I don't, do you have that sketch plan that we submitted to them? Could you pull that up? Because we have to be careful. We submitted a sketch plan for you guys for both this 4W.1 and Meyer Lot 2. And one challenge we have as we get over behind Murdoch's is the floodplain. And I'm concerned if we do too big of a right of way that we potentially push some of our planned improvements that were in that sketch plan into the 100-year floodplain, which we specifically have stayed out of and don't want to get into. Okay. And so that's something that I'd like to show you guys when you pull this up, and then we can better understand what you're trying to achieve and what you would like to see back there. And then I don't know if there's a way we can work together and maybe get some compliance on the Murdoch Center and dress that up a little bit. Because we do see this as an important road for the area, and driving along a dumpster ridden, storage container ridden alley, what effectively is a pretty poorly kept alley today, is not great. And I understand on the construction, the construction will be there, hopefully gone in the next 4 years. It's all related to these condos that we're building. And then when that's finished, it's gone, and then our yard moves. So this gets our equipment yard moved to a new location. Right. So, you know, you kind of got to bear with us on the earthwork and the fill that we have to bring in. But nonetheless, this map that's up here, I don't wonder, but where her hand is on that drawing. I'll just try to talk loud so the speakers pick me up.
Well, here, come over here and just use this. You can use the mouse and use the hand.
Show us the
Just
hand.
use the hand.
So this little sliver right here was actually deeded by Ruth Meyer to the town in 2002. This little weird spot that's right here.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming that was kind of straightening that out. My concern is we've got, we're trying to get more parking in here. That's why we proposed parking along John's Drive that we would get credit for towards the residential need. And so that's this area. So I think this would need to be straightened out a little bit. And if we slid this over, my fear is right here. I've got about that much room to move. You see that line where that hand is sitting? That's the 100-year floodplain. That's the FEMA mapped 100-year floodplain. And we need these parking spots. And so I really have not a problem giving that distance, but I'm not sure that's 20. I think you're asking for 24 feet. Is that what you're asking for, Catherine?
Yeah, because it is a 36.
It's 36. If you want to go to 60 and match the two, it's 24. Then
Yeah.
I think we would want to work with the town on, okay, we don't want to get stuck with improvements on that road. I mean, that's largely for Murdoch's and other stuff. So we would want to talk to the town about how improvements and cost shares would work. And then, possibly this intersection that's right here, which is technically, this is actually John's Drive. So we're going to have to talk about some renaming of things. It's kind of like what we just did with King's Crossing and some of the stuff in Winter Park. This intersection, in my mind, probably can be designed to flow more specifically in, which we could work on in engineering. And then this road probably should be a T into it and have a stop sign. And that's how I would design it from a practical perspective. And this could stay John's Drive, and then we can rename this to whatever we all agree upon. And then I just want you to be sensitive to the fact that we need this parking down here, and we don't want to slide ourselves over into the 100-year floodplain. So we're a little pinched on that.
The good thing it's a parking lot and not a building.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, but we still can't put it in the floodplain. I mean,
Yeah.
But it goes back
we can with a lot of brain damage. It's not worth it.
get some parking accounts on that road,
Yeah.
then, maybe that could, again, help offset some of
Yeah.
some of the ask, right?
Right. I mean, this area, Katie was sitting right here basically this morning.
Why don't we
Right.
sit here with Dr. Murdoch?
That's where they sit and have their coffee.
Yeah, because
Uh,
it's a great sun. I can see.
They don't have to
the
go far to
wires,
throw their
the
cups
and
into
I
the
sit behind
dumpster.
aspens,
Uh,
And I put my, not next to the dumpster.
we like parking being here primarily because we think, we're obviously trying to keep buildings away from what's not real sightly, here on the back of this. And obviously that could be improved pretty dramatically, but I mean, if you, Catherine, and I don't know, does Russell perhaps have some, I mean, we kind of need like maybe you and one other person to have meetings with our group and talk about ideas
Mhm.
for how we best fix that area. And then we come up with, okay, here's what it's going to cost and here's how we get there. And we'll just work with you guys to figure that out. And again, we can take Meyer Lot 2 just out of this and still get 4W developed and leave this for the future. I'm trying to kind of kill two birds with one stone, get this set in motion. So it's just finished done. We finished a $16 million road project with no subdivisions associated with it last year on the south end of our project for the underpass and the road network that connects over to Winter Park. This is kind of the north end. And I think it's a benefit to have all these roads wrapped up. But when you don't have subdivisions related to them that generate revenues to help pay for this stuff, it's challenging to do some of these things. So,
Having that right away would be huge.
Yeah. And I think whether you like it or not, that's going to become a very heavily trafficked road. It already is.
it already is.
Because people are coming across the gravel road now, which you're going to improve.
Yep.
And then they're going down that alley and the bus come that way too. So it's tight through there. And I think
Right.
it's going to increase in traffic flow. So I really like the idea of what you were talking about is bringing the real Johns Road as a T into the intersection and having a nice wide road all the way out to 72.
So Catherine, I don't know if y'all could figure out maybe a committee on your end and we can hook up with Teresina and me and we can doodle a little bit on paper and try to figure it out. Okay. Because there's other things we could do other than a right of way grant. I think that's the important thing. If I think we could fit a bigger road in there. And utilities, things like that could be in an easement area outside of it, very similar to what we do in some of our other stuff, because you're not going to build a 60-foot road through that corridor. So there, I mean, I think there's options to be able to have, like, some of our parking could encroach. We could have an easement over it, but it doesn't push our parking into the 100-year floodplain. I mean, I think there's a number of things we could come up with on. Ultimately, we just kind of need to know your goal, which is, do we straighten the road out? Do we make it bigger, wider, how wide, et cetera? So if we can commit to work on that over the next few weeks, that would be great. Okay. I think that's it.
Anyone
Any
else?
questions? Does anybody have any questions for me?
I have just a clarification question. So Catherine, now we're talking about 11 recommendations
Yeah.
or conditions
Mhm.
to our recommendation.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then
And
The thought
leaving,
was-
let's see, where was it? Okay, we're leaving 9, but that's going to be worked on outside of this action tonight.
Yeah, that's not for
Okay,
us to.
Right. All right, I'm good.
And then my thought was to not send this to town board for preliminary plat
Bring it back.
and bring it back to final plat at planning commission unless you see that you want something else. Unless you want to push it up to town board.
The preliminary.
Yeah.
Well, I'm concerned that if, and just correct me if I'm wrong in thinking like this, we're still, that condition about the conservation easement is still gonna be in existence. And there's not anything that, as I stated before, we're not aware with all those negotiations, what's going on, and it's not really our job to interpret that.
So you're suggesting you send it to the town board?
I'm
After-
not positive, I'm just not sure if are you proposing for some of these to get worked through on the staff level and then have it come back to us as a final class before, and then we can recommend approval? Is that what you're saying?
I mean, we have the option of sending this right now to town board if
Right.
you feel like they should weigh in on this.
I think that there's a lot of questions to be answered before it goes to the board level.
Okay.
I think there's a lot of staff work to be done before it goes to board level personally.
I think the more we can resolve before we send it to the town board, then the less they'll have to weigh in on. And hopefully there'll only be 1 or 2 minor points that they'll have to make their judgment about. But I think if we could work with Clark's staff and get a lot of these questions answered, and then it comes back for final plat, once we got final plat to look at it all over again.
Okay.
So
It's a better way.
if it comes back to us and we approve, but do we approve it? This still goes to the board for final approval? or
Correct.
not? Okay,
Right,
Yeah.
but what we're doing is we're recommending approval to the board. We're
right,
not approving it.
Right.
because We don't have that capacity.
right, okay.
But what Catherine's saying is we don't have to send it to the town board
Yeah,
at preliminary plat
Correct.
stage. We
Right.
can
Right.
wait and send it at final plat stage.
Right.
And
Okay,
I don't know if we're gonna have worked out the question about the conservation easement, but if that's the only thing we've got still up in the air, then it goes to the town
Now we
board
push it
and
up then.
push it up, and then they're the ones that have had all the agreements and been involved in the survey and all that. So I'm fine with that.
All right, does anyone, any other comments? Karen? Any other comments from you guys?
What
What
about
about
Parnell
us? Yeah.
and Sam?
Do you guys have any
I'm-
comments or questions?
Well, other than the fact that I can't see the board that Kent was referring to, I mean, the map, sorry. And I went through all the documents and I don't see it in the documents we
and-
got.
Parnell, I apologize for that. I didn't realize I was going to be here tonight, and that was just my work product from my office that I
Okay.
brought along with me. So it was never intended to, it was what I used to analyze the situation.
I
Okay,
think
great.
Jim
So they
was
can,
Trying to put it up on the screen.
You
If
took a
just give us
picture,
a
right?
second.
Give me just 1 second.
Oh, yeah.
I took a picture of it.
Oh.
Technology at its
Yeah.
finest.
Yeah.
Let me see if I'll select this.
Little magician.
Ha, picture with my phone, so take it for what it's worth.
Still not up on the.
Oh,
screen.
sorry, showing?
There it
There
is.
it is.
Thank you.
And Ken, I just want to clarify, because I glanced at it quickly with Katie and Mr. Ganusi over here, but that purple line is what you're saying is Mr.
The segment
Shanks,
of,
the purple,
Shank
the straight purple line.
Is Tim Shanks
Okay.
line.
That was the survey.
And
I'll-
so the area that's already in our conservation easement and meets in bounds legal description that's outside of that purple easement, what are we supposed to do with that?
So this is no longer conservation easement.
Right.
As an
Yeah.
example.
'Cause
But I mean, that's where our recorded conservation easement lies, where this arrow is.
yeah,
And your lines over here is a straight line.
Yeah. Again, Clark, it's not my line. That's the line that the surveyor came up with and the
Okay.
town agreed with.
Okay, well, let's get
I'll-
Mr. Shank here to explain how that works, because
This is-
when I have something like this, my surveyors do it, I typically understand why they would have done it. And if it's not your line, you should understand why he did it and how he did it, or he should be here, because literally your scenario would take this whole area out of conservation. So you guys are actually going backwards from what I think your goal is, but
But it's all in.
Yeah, we can talk about that
litigation,
too.
It's all being fine tuned, so
Yeah.
it'll wash out, as it should.
but just kind of point of reference. So thanks for pulling that up, Layla.
yep, thank you.
So
How about-
Sam, do you have any comments?
No, I've good with everything
Questions?
I've heard so far. No.
You said you're good, Sam? I'm sorry.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yes.
So.
No.
is it time for motion?
to close the public hearing.
Close the public hearing.
Do we have any?
Oh, yeah, did you have
Anybody
any
from the
letters?
public
Hold
on the line?
There's no public online that I see. Am I missing anyone?
No, but you gotta go through the motions.
You didn't get any letters or
I think she
submittals,
still has to
Catherine?
call for public comment.
No,
From
I
the
didn't.
public.
I only
Okay.
received agency review comments that were in the packet.
Okay,
Move to close the public hearing.
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Are you ready to make a motion?
I move to approve Fraser Planning Commission Resolution number 2022-0301. Resolution.
Second.
Go ahead.
But we were going to delete number 6.
Yeah.
With the
right?
deletion
yeah.
of number
All
6,
right.
thank you, in the resolution. That references Old Victory Road.
And who seconded? Was that Parnell?
Yep.
Okay.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Do we have any? other business?
I think Antoinette had something to add.
So I did. So Fraser's having our municipal election on April 5th, which means that there are seats on the planning commission that will expire their terms. And there's actually 4 commissioners. And at the expiration of this or with the election, there are 3 mayoral appointees that will expire, and that's Chair Gene Walter, Bob Ganusi, and Margaret Bowles. Your terms expire, and Katie Souls will expire, which
night.
is,
Good night.
Nice-
you are
nice
a board
presentation, Lynn.
appointee. And as a board appointee, your term follows your term. So your term will also expire at the election. So it'll be 4 seats expiring. So we are going to be advertising to the general public. I did speak to the mayor about this, about going to the public and asking people if they're interested and to please put an application out. The process hasn't quite started yet, but we wanted to let you guys know that this is what's going to be happening. So you will
So
have the
for
opportunity.
existing appointees, do they need to resubmit an application?
They do.
Okay.
Yes, and that way we know if you're interested or if you're not. And that gives the town board the opportunity to look at everybody that is interested in sitting on the planning commission. They're actually the mayor's appointees. The mayor looks at the application and he decides on 3 of those seats, and then the town board decides on that 1 seat.
So if you get reelected,
I have to get approved to get by the town board.
but if you get reelected, then you'll, I guess they
I,
can say. they
yeah,
don't
the
want
board
you.
could
Okay.
still say they want
Yeah,
to put somebody
okay,
else
they
up
want
there.
this- I got it.
So we'll see.
So when did you say that that's gonna go out?
Vote
I'm
for me,
working
I
on
said
it now.
Okay.
Hopefully I will get that out in the next week to 2 weeks at the
I'm
most.
still running
Okay.
next year.
And are you gonna put a deadline on that?
I will put a
She's not
deadline on
gonna
that.
be
I haven't quite worked through all of those details just yet. But I would hope that the board will be able to reappoint all of our committees at that first meeting in May. So we hope to have all of those applications probably towards the end of April, but I don't have quite that date yet. But hopefully we can have that process available for 3 to 4 weeks for the public to apply.
And then Ed, you had mentioned that there is money in the 2022 budget to
Yes, I
look
did.
at revising the comprehensive plan.
Yes, I double checked on that. I had made a proposal because there's some conflict over an equipment purchase. I made a proposal that was overruled, and I was mistaken about that. But there is money, $150,000, I believe, for comp plan update beginning this year. So I've asked Catherine to look at putting together an RFP to start that process.
So I think it might be beneficial for people to start thinking about that. Taking a look at our existing comprehensive plan and taking a look at some of the subsequent plans that we have done since the 2010 comprehensive plan. And apart from the typical requirements in a comprehensive plan, why don't you think about ideas and thoughts that you're looking for that you might want included in this RFP that will go out at some point. So. And
Catherine, if I could interrupt
Yeah.
you for a second, could we get a copy of our existing comp plan and all those other plans that we have, like the downtown strategic plan,
mhm,
and email that to the planning commission?
yeah,
So that you're not gonna put the RFP out until the new planning commission.
no, I haven't even started working on
Yeah, well,
that.
you've got some time.
I
'cause
imagine
there's the
to be
election in 4
early
weeks later.
summer before we are ready to move on something.
Yeah.
Trying to think what you're started. It's been a long time.
But what you started,
Yeah.
that's not on here.
Just, I got renewed in 18. It's okay, we don't have to talk about it. I think it was 2010. Maybe it was 9. Do we have any other business?
The only other thing I want to mention is I believe we're meeting on the 27th of April. I'm missing a document from the submittal right now that I need to get like ASAP in order to get this shifted out to agency review for comment. And this is Greg Beckler's property over on the previous One Love site. So it's kind of an exciting submittal that's really going to help transform downtown. And I mean, we've really been pushing for this, for redevelopment opportunities down there, you know, for many years now, and especially since we did the improvements to Highway 40. So I'm excited for you guys to take a look at that. So hopefully it'll be on track, but plan on the 27th of April, but I'm hoping to get that last document, like I said, as soon as possible.
I was just sitting here thinking, what about March? And March is almost
March is
over.
almost gone.
That's all I have. Ed, did you have anything else?
No, but
Antoinette?
after this, if I could have Catherine, Kent, and Katie for just a second.
Okay. Anything else from onliners?
Not for me. Get better soon.
Thank you.
Arnell, I hope you have some fun wherever you are.
3 days of meetings. It's always fun.
All right, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Okay,
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. all.
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good meeting, everyone.
Thank you.
Very good.
I think I've got another good 40 years. I'm staying healthy.
It's hot.